So this is how I do my snap tabs. I start off with what's called a name drop, and that can be created in Stitch Artist. So there's a couple of YouTube videos on it. I can link you to one when I'm done. But then I drop my name into the name drop, which is why it's called a name drop, and it basically ensures that all of my names are the same height and width, no matter how many characters they are. The only exception to this is if the name is really short, like Leo or Anna. The name won't fill that space just because it looks weird. So I'm doing one today for Haley. So I'll come down here to the text and type in Haley, and I set it. And so you can see that the name automatically fills the box. So what I'm going to do is I select my name, I copy it, and I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing. And I paste it. Then I go into Stitch Artist. And Stitch Artist is this little icon up here that says Create Designs. Once I get into Stitch Artist, I'm going to make sure that my name is selected. And I'm going to go to this box over here, which is going to create an outline of every letter on my page. So I click that. Then what you want to do is you want to inflate that outline using this little button on the bottom. And I typically do right at 4 millimeters. This gives me good spacing. Most of my letters connect that way. You also want to click Remove Holes, which will remove the little holes like within the E and the A. You don't want those to be outlined or inflated, so we just get rid of those. Occasionally, the program will kind of glitch and you will get those, and you just have to go in and remove them manually, or just delete your outline and try again. I'm not sure why it does that, but probably 1 out of every 10 or so, I get outlines that remain within those letters, like E's and A's. Okay, so once you've inflated it, click OK. So now you can see over here on our little box that we have all these individual outlines. We don't want individual outlines. We want to basically merge those together. So we go back up to the top and we click this button right here that says Union. So we're going to join all those. But if you look back in your objects pane, you still have all of these individual letters, and all we want is the union. So what we do is we just select those items and I hit delete, and then I only have the union. And see, here's one that we still have the inside of the E. And I just go in here, and if you double click on the points, it will remove these points for you, which is what I just tend to do because it takes me less time that way. And click on that one, and I get rid of the little details inside. Sometimes when you have like the L and the E, there's a bigger gap that 4 millimeters just doesn't cover, which is why you get that. The same thing with this over here. Now I still want to have a little bit of detail in here. So I'm just going to change this a little bit, and I'm going to change this to a line so it's just straight across. So now we have an outline, but it doesn't stitch or anything yet. Before I create the stitch lines, what I want to do is I want to grab my tab that I have in another, that I already have saved, and I just basically add it to this. So I'm going to go over here where I have my tab already pulled up. I just make sure it's selected and I copy it. I come back over here and I paste it. And then I drag it over and I just kind of eyeball it, make sure it's centered. I select this entire design too, which is my outline and my snap tab. I want to change the color just for my own personal preference so that everything is the same color, because I typically stitch those in the same color. There's no reason why I wouldn't stitch them in the same color, so I just set them as the same color in the program. Okay, so now that I have those in there, I want to turn this line into a stitch. So I have it selected. I go up here and I click on this run stitch, and I want it to be a bean stitch. with 3 passes, which is my default basically that I typically do. My stitch length is 2.5 millimeters, which I find is good for getting in the details. If I click on this middle button over here, I want to make sure that I tie at the entry and at the exit. That's just going to ensure that your machine is tying off knots and you're not going to have anything come unraveled. So I also tend to zoom in, and I just want to make sure that these points kind of touch the line of my name so that there's no weird gaps. The other thing I want to do is when I look at this, I want to select my name, my name outline. And if you see where these little bow ties are, the green bow tie is where your stitch is going to start, and the red bow tie is where it's going to stop. I like to have those start and stop where I want my tab to start. That way it just goes around once and I'm not having to worry about backtracking. So I just line those up. And then what I do, I'm going to zoom out, and I always watch my stitch run, so go into test stitch mode. And I just am going to zoom through. You can hit the play button over here, but I just kind of zoom through because I know my name is going to stitch out fine because I use this font for everything. But what I want to make sure is that my outline stitches around in one single pass, and then it stitches my tab over here. If it doesn't go around in one pass, you just need to adjust those start and stop points, and sometimes it helps to zoom way in and look at where everything is connecting, and you'll have to go back into design mode to view that. So I could probably even move my stop point up a little bit, just so there's no weird tiny little jump. And then I'll just go view it again. And everything looks perfect. So I select everything, I group it, and I center it. If I'm making a bunch of these, I will put a basting box around the design. If I go up here to just base design, oops, I didn't select everything for whatever reason. Oh, I usually save it first, and then I'll open it back up and baste the design. But that's just how I know where my placement is for that particular color on my stabilizer. If I'm doing, I like to do a bunch of these in my big hoop. So that's how I do snap tabs. Let me know if you have any questions.